February 23rd, have to look at the date, time is flying. 2023 meeting of the Community Redevelopment Agency, the board meeting. We're going to call the meeting to order at 9:30. We're going to start on time and we're going to finish on time. How about that? And so we're going to, as you can see, Mr. Cox is not here today. We're asking that you keep him and his family in your thoughts and prayers. His daughter is ill, and he is where he's supposed to be. And so he has very capable staff that's going to be here to keep things going, and a very agile attorney who will keep us straight. So we're going to move on, and we'll ask Ms. Sherry to let us know, are there any agenda modifications?
No, ma'am, there are no agenda modifications.
Okay, thank you. And so we're going to move on to our presentation. We have a presentation by the DRC. Is someone here from DRC?
I do not see our chair, Cal Phelps. He was scheduled to be here. Oh, he's just coming in.
Okay, all right. You heard us call your name. Just walk right on up, just in time.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Just going to give a quick update on the last DRC meeting that we had, and what I'll update you all on is a couple of things that we recommended. Go through the DRC and be presented to the CRA. So the first thing we had was Global City Development. They had an application for multifamily workforce housing. I think you all have probably seen this by now, but this is a 300-unit workforce housing development with 10,000 square feet of commercial, which is on the vacant parcel of land near Bethel Missionary Baptist Church, actually owned by Bethel Missionary Baptist Church right now. And the request to the CRA is for a $7 million loan for assistance in the development. Now, the total project cost on this is $100 million, so there's an equity component, and then they're looking for a first loan. So again, this is going to be a second loan for them is the way it's structured, and any interest that the CRA has to carry to borrow money for this, they are saying they will cover that interest as well. And just a little bit more about the project. It is targeted. This is workforce housing, so professionals who earn between 80 and 140% of area median income. And the motion that was presented to be passed to the CRA for your guys' review and consideration once it gets to that point is to move forward with the $7 million from the CRA. The developer will cover interest cost. That'll be passed on, whatever the CRA is, to the developer. The CRA loan will only be drawn after all equity has been injected. Then the CRA loan would be injected based on progress on the project. And then the payback of the CRA loan will be in a bond financing or stabilization of the project if bond financing isn't there. What is in here is 95% leased up to be defined as stabilization. Of course, that's just for your consideration as this moves forward. We also had in front of us a proposed parking lease buyout. This was recommended to us by staff for $100,000 to buy out some parking spaces that the CRA owns in the College Town area. We conferred with staff's recommendation and voted for that unanimously. So those were really kind of the main points that came out of DRC, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Thank you. Ms. Thompson, Williams, do we have any public speakers on this item?
No, we do not.
Board?
Keep up good work, Kyle.
Any other comments? Thank you for the report. We're excited about what you've shared, and thank you. Make sure you let the DRC know we appreciate your volunteerism and your support in moving our city forward. So thank you very much. I'm told that for the Greater Frenchtown Southside update, the chair, Walter McDonald, will not be able to join us today. So we will move on to public comment on agenda items.
We do have quite a few speakers on agenda items. I'm not sure if you want to take those before the actual item or if you want to take them all at this time.
Let's take them all at this time.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so very much. So with that, the first speaker that we have a speaker card for is Mr. Stanley Sims, followed behind Ms. Ariel Raff, followed behind Ms. Kelly Dozier. Name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes, and there's several more speakers after that.
Thank you.
Good morning. Ms. Williams, this is just the agenda item, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm here this morning to speak on agenda item 701. It's in reference to the termination of the sale of Market Square. And I'm kind of at a disadvantage because I wanted to be further informed by staff with a presentation so that my remarks can be a little bit pointed. But Commissioner and Madam Chair, here is one of those examples where I think that the CRA should have extra provisions in place for those, especially minority operating business, to maintain longevity and sustainability of the environment of that community for businesses like this. And then Commissioner Porter, oftentimes when you say you commission staff about more, here is a more that I can identify. Let's look at the takeover of land in this prestigious historic area, Commissioner Richardson. If we're going to put land out for sale in these historical lands, Madam Chair, we have to look at the long-term effect. Well, today, they came with a lot, like the incident yesterday with the land in the CRA. Why didn't the CRA go to the CAT and ask the CAT what minority business, local-owned minority business, could take over this property? And yes, we might not have bought that property at $500,000, Mr. Mayor, and we might have got a low-interest loan that OEV currently has out, or First Florida that currently has out, small interest loan for $300,000. But the long term, that property is off the tax roll and is owned by local minority vendors. That's the more. So I don't in favor of terminating this lease. I'm asking you as a board to challenge CRA to come up with a more to maintain the ownership, current ownership of this great initiative that could be probably better marketed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Ms. Ariel Raff, followed behind Ms. Kelly Dozier, followed behind Mr. Paul Kraft. Name and address for the record.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Ariel Raff. I'm the Executive Director of Lemoyne Arts, and thank you for having me here today. I wanted to thank you for your leadership and your previous support. Your leadership in arts and culture and heritage is very important for our community, and it greatly enhances our community and our visitor experience. We're pleased that Lemoyne was recommended for the CRA TDT grant funding, and we hope for your approval today. This current grant provides Lemoyne with studio and permanent collection furnishings, ADA accessibility for our studios at Lemoyne, and it enhances our sculpture garden with a digital tour. It will allow Lemoyne to complete its multi-phase, multi-building campus enhancements, and it'll contribute to a vibrant 18-hour day in downtown Tallahassee. So we'd really appreciate your support today, and thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Ms. Kelly Dozier, followed behind Mr. Paul Kraft, followed behind Mr. Dan Taylor.
I'm Kelly Dozier, 2101 East Randolph Circle, Tallahassee, and I'm here in support of all the projects that are recommended for funding through the TDT CRA grant. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for our community, and I appreciate your leadership.
Thank you. Mr. Kraft, followed behind Mr. Dan Taylor, followed behind Mr. Alan Hansen.
Yes, I'm Paul Kraft, the immediate past president of Lemoyne, and like everybody else, I'm here to ask your support for approving all three of the grants that are down on Once again, I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Dan Taylor, followed behind Mr. Alan Hanstein, followed behind Ms. Donna Cotterell.
Good morning. I'm Dan Taylor. I live at 1224 Mitchell Avenue, 32303, and I'm here on behalf of agenda item 9.02. I'm the proud vice president of Lemoyne Arts, but I'm also a member of Lemoyne Arts and an artist, and I just wanted to briefly brag about the recent programming that Lemoyne Arts has been doing. We have seen record visitors. The crowds have been vibrant and diverse and thrilled about what's happening at Lemoyne, and so we appreciate your support too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hanstein, followed behind Ms. Donna Cotterell, followed behind Ms. Paula Fortunas.
Thank you. My name is Alan Hanstein, 3234 Yates Avenue, Tallahassee, Florida, 32311. Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Again, my name is Alan Hanstein. I'm the director of the Challenger Learning Center of Tallahassee. On behalf of myself, our amazing team of educators, our board, and most importantly, on behalf of the more than 50,000 students from 68 counties across Florida, Georgia, and Alabama, as well as the thousands of other visitors who enjoy the center while visiting Tallahassee from every state and countries as far away as Finland and Japan. Thank you again for giving us this opportunity to be here today. We appreciate your support of STEAM Among the Stars, and I'm always available to answer any questions about our proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker, please.
Ms. Cotterell, followed behind Ms. Paula Fortunas, followed behind Ms. Atkinson.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity. And I'm so grateful for the support we've had so far from the other two reviews of the TDT grant application. And I am hoping that you'll consider the performances, 18 months of performances that we've laid out, in addition to the infrastructure, which we're hoping to use some of that funding for the amphitheater that has been neglected in the downtown area, the Meisberg Amphitheater, which is in bad need of repair, but could be part of the vision for the 18-hour downtown and bringing that vibrancy to the city. We have proposed a funk and blues concert, which some of us listened to funk when we were growing up, while our parents listened to the blues. So hoping to bring that energy and that vitality. For me, it brings back so many memories, and I think that it would attract a lot of people from across this region to this area, as well as the Gee's Bend quilt, which is a long history around quilting, the Underground Railroad. We have 13 months looking to do a performance each month on the 24th of the month for the bicentennial, starting in December of this year. And we're partnering with the Challenger Learning Center on that. I spoke to Mr. Allen today, and he's all on board for that. So looking for your support in addition to the infrastructure, the programming aspect of the application that we submitted. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Ms. Paula Fortunas, followed behind Atkinson.
Good morning, Paula Fortunas, 6264 Mahan Drive, 32308. I am a board member with Lemoyne Arts and chair its Art for Always capital campaign. My role this morning is simply to answer any questions that you might have about our private sector fundraising and how we put those dollars to use in concert with our initial generous CRA tourist development grant of $1 million and the one we're seeking today. So I'm happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker, Atkinson.
Hello, my name is Kia Atkinson, 3205 Springdale Drive, Tallahassee, Florida, 32312. I am also a Lemoyne board member, and I am here just to support this wonderful organization.
Thank you.
Thank you. So far, all the speakers have been speaking on agenda item 9.02, other than Mr. Sims. We actually did receive a comment, email last night from Mr. Max Epstein, also on agenda item number 9.02, and that information is on the dais for each one of the board members, and we forward that out in an email to you all. So with that, we have some additional speakers. We have Mr. Stanley Sims on agenda item number 7.01, Ms. Mary Stein and Sheldon Steen on 10.01, 10.01, and Elizabeth Emanuel on agenda item number 10.01, Allison Denny on 10.01. Mr. Sims, if you would, I have a speaker card for you for 7.01. Are you wanting to speak on that?
He already spoke.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, you have two things on your card. Okay, so the next speakers we have is Mary Steen.
Are those for agenda items or unagenda items?
Okay, all right, on the agenda.
Okay, all right. So those are all of our agenda items. Thank you all so very, very much for coming out to speak on behalf of the agenda items. We're going to move on to consent. 5.01, approval of the November 10th.
Move consent. Second.
Been properly moved and second that we accept the approval of the minutes. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Commissioner, Board Member Porter, we're voting. Thank you. I wanted to make sure when I reported the vote that we had a unanimous vote on the consent item. Were there any? There were no items pulled from the consent. Okay, so we're going to move to 7.01, termination of the purchase and sale agreement and development agreement.
Yes, Madam Chair. Item 7.1, this item presents a proposed termination of the purchase and sale agreement as well as the development agreement for properties at the 400 block of West Tennessee Street and Virginia Street, and they're the former shelter properties. Lou Norvell, our Senior Assistant City Attorney, will present this item to you all and provide more information.
So, Madam Chair, as Sherry mentioned, this is termination of these two agreements. We've met with the developer's representative on these agreements, and it is not possible for the developer to meet the conditions that are stated in the current agreements. Specifically, the agreements call for the approval of tax credits for affordable housing. They call for the construction of 130 housing units. They also call for development of a parcel to the east, which is privately owned. And these are just not possible for the developer to perform. The contract would run until September of this year, but in acknowledging the impossibility of performance, the developer has acknowledged, again, that it's just not possible for them to do this stuff. The developer has indicated a willingness to go ahead and terminate. The CRA owns these parcels, so it will just free up these parcels and they can be alternatively developed as the board directs at a later date. So the staff recommendation is to approve the termination.
Thank you. Board members?
Move staff recommendation option 1. Chair.
It's been properly moved and seconded to accept staff recommendation. Is there any further discussion? Mayor?
Yeah, I just wanted to go on the record saying how much I appreciate the developer working hard over the years to try to meet the terms and bring the grocery. It wasn't in the cards. This is per his recommendation to terminate, but I do think that they did a yeoman's effort to try to bring it to fruition, and we do appreciate it.
Any other comment?
Yeah, I agree with the mayor, and you know, in all the discussions that I've had with Mr. Brown, he has certainly felt bad about the fact that, you know, the cars just didn't align and couldn't move forward. And I would hope that, you know, sometime in the future we can resurrect that partnership. But my concern is, you know, I was around when all of this first started. And, you know, after 5-6 years, I just couldn't in any way validate is not the word I'm looking for, but say to the community that, you know, that we were moving forward with this project when it looked today like it looked 5 or 6 years ago. And so I think we have made the right decision here, and hopefully we will expedite a future contract to get this property developed. There may be some other issues that will present themselves that will help us accomplish that. And so we look forward to that being the case as well. So with that, I certainly support the recommendation from staff.
Any other comment? Hearing none, I too want to thank Mr. Brown and everyone who was involved in this to try to bring this to fruition in the Frenchtown area. So at this time, we will go to the vote. All in favor of accepting the recommendation, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, unanimously accepted the termination of the purchase and sale agreement. Thank you. Moving on to item number 8.01.
Yes, Madam Chair. Item 8.101 is the proposed parking lease buyout. This item presents a proposed buyout of a lease of 15 parking spaces within the Collegetown development. Assistant City Attorney Lou Norvell will also present that item.
Madam Chair, as Sherry mentioned, this is a proposed buyout for a lease of 15 parking spaces. The spaces are located within the Collegetown development. This lease began in 2013, and at that time there was a $150,000 payment from the CRA to the developer. There are about 15 and a half years left on the lease term. Since 2013, there has been significant development in the Collegetown area, and that development includes the construction of a number of parking structures. The CRA itself owns more than 160 spaces, which are off of Gain Street in the developments that are known as the Block and the Deck. And according to City Parking Services, there's another 250 or so public parking spaces and other structures within the vicinity, as well as about 80 street-side parking spaces along the Gaines and Madison Street areas. So therefore, there's about 500 public parking spaces within a 2-block radius of this area. The CRA lease space, well, the CRA owned spaces are generating some revenue, and they're available for hourly pay. The CRA lease spaces are currently located in this parking structure, which fronts Lorraine Street. The parking spaces have actually been moved several times to accommodate other development within the area. The CRA lease spaces are currently being partially utilized by parking services for parking enforcement. If the board accepts the lease buyout, the developer then will just utilize the spaces for tenants within the development, and the developer is offered to buy out the lease for $100,000. Staff have provided the financial analysis of the proposed buyout, and the real estate manager has also reviewed the proposed payment. The DRC, as Mr. Phelps mentioned, reviewed this and unanimously recommended approval. If the board accepts the buyout, the funds would go into the CRA accounts and would be available for other CRA programs and projects. That concludes the presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Norvell. Any questions from board members? Board member Matlow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify that, Lou, the lease parking spaces currently aren't generating revenue?
They are not currently generating revenue. They are being utilized by city parking services and the parking ambassadors.
Okay.
My understanding is they've never generated revenue. They were in a surface parking lot available for just public parking, but my understanding is they've never generated revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Second.
It's been properly moved to accept, moved and second to accept staff recommendations. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Unanimously passed. Moving on to item number 9.01.
Yes.
Fiscal year closeout.
Yes, Madam Chair. 9.01 is the fiscal year 2022 CRA closeout, budget closeout. We had a few slides for that presentation. I'm not sure if we're able to pull those up or not, but the budget closeout compares the adopted budget with the actual budget, reviewing our revenues, expenditures, and allocations. For the Greater Frenchtown Southside District, the actual revenues were $5.3 million, slightly less than the $5.6 million in the adopted budget. Capital expenditures were $4.3 million instead of the adopted $4.9 million. This was mainly due to the use of using remaining fiscal year 21 funds that were expended in fiscal year 22 for 22 expenses. We utilized the fiscal 21 funds before utilizing the 22 funds, implementing the first in, first out accounting principle. With master project and revenues totaling $468,000 actual expenses, balancing the actual 22 budget for the Greater Frenchtown Southside District. The next district for the downtown district, the adopted revenues were $6.1 million compared to the actual revenues of $3.2 million. This decrease was mainly due to the overestimation of reserve funds during the budget adoption process. The actual capital expenditures were $1.3 million, with uncommitted master project and reserve balancing totaling $1.5 million, balancing the downtown budget for fiscal year 22. Staff is recommending the CRA board accept the actual fiscal 22 budget closeout as described in the agenda item. And that concludes our budget presentation for the closeout for fiscal year 2022. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Any questions, board members?
I would move staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved by Board Member Richardson and seconded by the mayor to accept staff recommendation of closeout. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now move to 9.02.
Yes, Madam Chair. 9.02 is funding recommendations for our tourist development tax dollars. This funding recommendations for the tourism development tax grant funding, which is being administered by the CRA. Staff has managed a review committee and applications received, making recommendations. Those recommendations have been taken to the Tourist Development Council, and now they're being presented to you. Sheila Williams will present this presentation with more information on the applications received and the process that we've gone through.
Thank you very much. This is agenda item number 9.02, funding recommendations regarding the TDT Arts and Cultural Grants. This item does present the funding recommendations for the Tourist Development Tax Grant funding, which under the interlocal agreement, the CRA is administering. There was a prior grant cycle by which $1,189,000 of TDT funds was awarded. The balance of the remaining TDT funds to be administered by the CRA is $2 million plus interest. At the September 8th, 2022 CRA board meeting, the board did approve the guidelines and the process to receive and to review grant applications for the use of funds. We did have an application window, and staff did market the availability of funding in numerous ways with the various chambers, through the Tallahassee Democrat, Capital Outlook, COCA, our webpage, news releases, the CRA newsletter, and much more. The application window opened October 1st, 2022, and closed November 30th, 2022. We did receive 4 applications. One application was deemed ineligible under statutory criteria for authorized expenditures of the TDT funds. During the application window, CRA staff did host or hold free workshops to assist applicants through the process and to answer any questions that they may have had. The Tallahassee Council on Cultural and Arts, or COCA, provided review and comment concerning each application and how it would meet the goals of the Capital Area Cultural Plan. There were 2 questions in the application that specifically required for applicants to speak to how what they were proposing met certain criteria in COCA's plan or the Capital Area Cultural Plan. We did formulate a committee, a review committee that we coined the Arts and Culture Review, or what I'll call the ACRC. Those applications were reviewed and scored by that committee at a public scoring meeting, which was held on January 19th, 2023. So with that, I'll go ahead and go to the slide presentation and give a brief overview of the applications that were deemed eligible for scoring. Our first applicant we had as Challenger Learning Center of Tallahassee. Their project is Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Music Among the Stars, or STEAM. Their funding request was for $713,450, and their project is located there at Duval Street. Their application, the scoring did rank as application scoring rank number 2. The next applicant behind that we have, and that's just a picture of their project. The next applicant we had is Indaba, which is a culmination of a couple of organizations, Indaba, Florida Lit Fest, Tallahassee Symphony, and Southern Shakespeare, and they were proposing improvements to the amphitheater and some Indaba programming. Their funding request amount was for $1 million, and it was ranked application number 3 of 3, and the evaluators determined that they would recommend funding at least $550 of funding to go towards only amphitheater improvements. And staff would recommend that we also work with City of Tallahassee procurement to assist with the purchase of equipment and installation. And our last and final application that was eligible for scoring of the 3 of 3 was Lemoyne Arts Foundation in finalizing their Art for Always project and crossing the finish line. Their funding request amount was for $765,000, and the funding recommendation from the ACRC was to fund the $765,000. This application ranked as application number 1 with a score of a 97.6. So with that, and those are just some pictures of the project or the property at this time. So with that, that does conclude at least the presentation on the applications. The CRA staff, the CRA board, under the interlocal agreement, the CRA board does review and make the recommendations for these projects, reminding or remembering that the board recommendations then will be submitted to the Leon County Board of County Commissioners and the City Commission. Final approval shall lie with the Leon County Board of County Commissioners and the Tallahassee City Commissioners, with all project funding needing to be approved by both the board and the Tallahassee City Commission. So this was actually reviewed through the City of Tallahassee's Resource Management Department and the City Attorney's Office. And in your agenda, we do have some options there for you. Option 1 was to approve the funding recommendation and forward the recommendation to the Leon County Board of County Commissioners and the Tallahassee City Commission for their review and consideration. Option 2 was do not approve the funding recommendations and provide staff with alternate direction. And CRA staff is recommending that you select option number 1, with the caveat that if this moves forward and all applications are recommended for funding, not forgetting that the CRA works with city staff as it relates to procurement and the installation of the improvements to the amphitheater. So with that, I believe that there are some representatives in the audience that, along with myself, the attorney, other staff, can answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move staff recommendation.
Madam Chair.
I heard who was, okay.
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to accept staff recommendation. We'll now go to discussion, Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Norvell, as you know, on the record, I serve in a voluntary capacity on the board of the Challenger Learning Center. The position of mayor that serves, but it is not a compensated. But do I have a conflict or a perceived conflict of interest in this vote?
Mr. Mayor, based on your description, we do not deem that to be a conflict that would require you to recuse yourself from this vote.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that was on the record, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Board Member Richardson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I certainly support the appropriations that have been recommended, but I'm going to challenge each of the organizations that's being awarded funding here this morning to ensure that your programming is diverse programming and reaches out to all segments of our community, and even consider taking some of the programming to the community, because there are lots of children and families in our community that can't get to Lemoyne or can't get to the Challenger Learning Center, and we've got community centers throughout the community where maybe you can consider taking some of your programming to those communities. So that would be my challenge to those who are accepting these funds. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I too have a couple of questions. The Dobby allocation is only for infrastructure. no programming. And so I heard Ms. Cotterell talk about programming. Is there some type of agreement or something that's going to take place for making sure that there is a place and space for programming? Since the application, she submitted the application in collaboration for these infrastructure changes. Is there something that she's getting in return?
Madam Chair, for this application, there are a number of items that were requested. The recommendation is only to fund the equipment to be installed at the amphitheater, so there would not be funding for the programming under this grant. There are certainly alternate grants, and I think Ms. Cotterell has spoken with staff about some alternative funding, but there would not be funding for programming under this recommendation.
I would just say that I do have some concerns that these dollars are only going to be used for signage to amplify something that we're quite capable of doing, amplifying ourselves. It was my hope, and I'll just share this because I've said this to several. I'm disappointed that we didn't have more applicants, and that just that we didn't have more applicants. And I've been told some of the reasons that could have prohibited that. But I'm hoping that we will find a way to work with others to bring this type of programming that is being requested to the new, improved, and enhanced Adderley Amphitheater because of the funding that's going to be going there. So that we'll just put a pin in that and deal with that at another time. But I really was looking forward to the summer funk and blues and seeing all of us there, you know, letting our hair down. So hopefully we will. Let me just put it out there because, you know, shut mouths don't get fed. We need to find a way. We need to find a way. And I'm looking at the folks in the audience. We need to find a way to work together to make sure that we land these programs in the amphitheater because we're putting additional public dollars in there to attract. So we need to make sure that we bring something there so that all folks will come and feel comfortable there at the Adderley Amphitheater. So I'm looking at Lemoyne, I'm looking at Challenger, I'm looking at everybody else out there who are getting public dollars. So let's come together and let's work together. I have a suggestion. It's time to do a We Are the World again. And we can do it right there at the amphitheater. You know, y'all remember We Are the World, how they raised money for World AIDS Day? It's time for us to come together. Ray Charles and some of them are gone. But we have our own right here in the community that we can do. Artists and others. So let's figure out creatively and innovatively how we can bring this programming to the newly improved and enhanced, beautified Adderley Amphitheater. So having said that, come off my soapbox and we'll just go ahead and call for the vote. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did want to commend those. I see you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I didn't want anyone to think that I have not noticed the efforts on behalf of both Challenger and Lemoyne to reach out to diverse segments of our community. I have been there personally and seen that to be the case, but certainly there's more that can be done. And as Madam Chair mentioned, those partnerships that can exist out there to reach a broader segment of our community. So thank you all for your efforts thus far. I didn't want you to think I had not recognized that. And, you know, I've been there to see it personally with my own eyes. And so we just look forward to those continued partnerships and reaching out to the various segments of our. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Board Member Porter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree wholeheartedly with what's been said and with your point about getting that programming support out there. I think that it's something we've heard going through this process, which has been many years going, and something that, you know, this is separate, the TDT money is separate from the CRA funds and city funds. But I do think that it's a need and a desire that's been identified As far as I know, the CRA has never provided any kind of support for programming. We do special events. We provide incentives for affordable housing. We do, there are other things we do. So, and I was going to wait, and I'm not making a motion here, but I would love to have a discussion about whether there's some place, whether at the city or the CRA, where we could provide a grant opportunity for some low, smaller amounts that can really make all the difference to smaller organizations who might not have the capacity. They don't want $100,000. They can't do anything with $100,000 yet. They need to build up to have that capacity to prove their programmatic value to the community, their stewardship. And I think it would be great for us to give people that chance, because it is hard to compete with other larger organizations who've been around and who are great stewards and deserve this support, but just of all kinds, separate than what we're doing here today. So I would support having a conversation like that for Indaba, and also for other organizations who want that programming as well. I think it's really important. I know we don't like to make policy on the fly. I don't know if there's a plan for that $100,000, but from the lease buyout. But I would love to see that conversation continue, if not later today during sharing of ideas or just in future meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Matlow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with the previous comments. I think from both of you. I was hesitant to divert from this process at all because it's been so long and arduous, and I'm ready to get it done. But I do think looking at the programming component, Ms. Williams, a lot of this programming, would that be eligible for large event funding at Cascades?
That is correct,
Okay.
potentially, yes. And I believe there is something else that is transpiring as it relates to some of the neighborhood first plans. There's conversation right now regarding potentially doing a micro enterprise program that potentially will allow for organizations to get money for programming and things of that nature. So something of that nature is already being discussed and in the works.
Okay, and are we still, we were doing $25,000 large events, and I think we were doing 50 for first year. Is that still?
40,000 for first-time events,
Okay.
and 25 for events that have been held already.
Okay. Okay, great. Oh, I would love to see Indaba applications for some of the events at Cascades. I think it'd be a great addition to bring forward through there, and also coordinate. I think Elizabeth Emanuel's here with the DIA. Does great work downtown as well. I think that'd be a good connection as we do events. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Board Member Matlow, as our representative on the DIA, I'm hoping you'll take those comments
Absolutely.
to the next meeting to bring it full circle, so that we can begin to bring more diverse activity into the downtown. And kudos to the DIA, because this summer we had all kinds of things going on down there, including Trombone Shorty, who I was not familiar with, and just the other day he was on CBS Morning Show out of New Orleans, and an outstanding young man. But also Big Frida was down there, and that's who I heard about, mostly about Big Frida. But anyway, thank you for what you're doing, and I look forward to hearing more activities and events and things that we can support. The entire community can come down and support. And the mayor has just reminded too that COCA, and I see the executive director in the room, COCA is also a part of all of the discussion about what we're doing in the arts and community events. And thank you for what you're doing and your leadership and the things that we're making sure that it happens. And to Lemoyne, when is your current exhibit? When does it end? The one for Black History? Saturday? I got to get by there because one of my good friends is on display, and she's asked me, have I been there yet? And I haven't had a chance to yet, so I got until Saturday to get there, right? So, okay, all right, I'm coming. Like Dion, I'm coming. Okay, all right, we're ready for the vote?
Ready.
All in favor of the motion that has been placed to finally put these dollars on the street and get them activated in our community? Let it be known by saying, or with a resounding aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? I mean, look, nobody better oppose this because we can't. This is like pulling teeth. Anyway, the motion has been unanimously accepted. And thank you all so very much for your patience, and thank you to the CRA staff for what you've done, and to our legal staff for helping to get us this far. Now, as you know, it's not over yet. So y'all just get ready to go on over to the county and spend some time with them and make sure they understand, like we understand, what we're trying to do here. And then you come on back over to the city commission meeting, and we'll put a bow on it, okay? Thank you all very much for your time this morning. We are going to move to now our unagenda items under public comments on non-agenda items.
Okay, thank you. We do have 4 speakers for that. Miss Mary Steen, followed by Mr. Sheldon Steen, followed by Miss Elizabeth Emanuel, followed by Allison Denny.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mary Steen. Is it possible to combine our speaking time?
Yes.
Thank you. Then Allison Denny.
You're at the end of this slide. That's the last one. Can you go back to I'm Allison Denny at 1714 Copperfield Circle, and I am joined here with Mary. We appreciate the opportunity to speak to y'all at the Community Redevelopment Agency today. We are here representing Amicus Brewing Ventures, and we are doing the redevelopment project at Old City Waterworks at 717 South Gadsden. First, we would like to update you on the construction progress. The building permits have been obtained at the beginning of the year, and then quickly we began work. We have been leveling the floors and have begun the addition of the ADA restrooms and cold and dry storage. We have executed all of our subcontracts, as many of our trades have already been on site doing rough-in work. We took advantage of the Office of Economic Vitality's resources and have achieved our minority business goal of at least 14% of the construction cost, and our general contractor is a registered women-owned business, allowing us to exceed the WBE threshold. In addition, the brewery team has been putting in sweat equity on evenings and weekends in an effort to keep rising construction costs in check. We are on track to open the doors of Amicus this summer. However, we're here today because we have run into a very unexpected issue. We recently learned that we need a water connection, which will require a tap into the main line that runs under Gain Street. This came as quite a surprise. If you can go one more. Oh, one more after that. There we go, that one. And the red circles show you that there were 2 water meters shown on our survey for this property. After searching and with the assistance of the city utility staff, we have learned that the city has some years ago removed these meters and capped the water supply lines in the right-of-way. The GIS map for the city actually still shows the water lines as existing, although they are no longer there. When we contacted the utility staff, we learned that we must pay a private contractor to partially excavate Gain Street, tap the main, run a new water supply line, install a new meter, and repair the roadway. City staff will permit and inspect, but our contractor will perform the work. The next drawing shows the water tap plan that was approved by the city. The estimated cost for this work is $64,652. This is not within our budget, and the water tap must be completed in order for us to proceed with any plumbing work or work in general on the project. We are hoping the CRA might be willing to assist us with this significant unexpected expense. So, in talking with Stephen Cox, we had learned that the CRA does have funds that they could allocate to this infrastructure work, and because of the urgency of the issue, they could be dispersed at the completion of the water tap and associated road.
Let me understand. Are you the only speaker, or are you?
Well, I was doing for the 3 of us, and then Elizabeth Emanuel. Just separate our time.
Yeah, normally that's how it's done. 3 minutes per speaker.
Right.
So when you stop, that's why we're just.
Okay, sorry. Well, I guess I could open it up for any questions.
Okay,
If
if I may, I just have a question. So when you went through permitting and everything got approved, at no point it was flagged that there wasn't water access?
No, because the water was on the GIS maps and it was on the survey. And so our engineering plans showed us getting water from that water tap to the building. So we just assumed that was all going to work. And then we went back to the city to actually try to locate those taps. And they did all of their boring and stuff. And then they're like, oh, it looks like at some point we abandoned them. And so that's why they're not there anymore.
Okay, so it wasn't even discovered until you went to try to tie
It wasn't discovered
into
until
the water
after
line.
we had our permit, actually, because we were trying to actually get the water from the taps that were no longer.
So thank you, Board Member Matlow. Any more questions? Okay, Mayor.
So, Mr. Attorney, how, in my briefing with Stephen yesterday, this is actually a recommended item, from what I understand from his perspective. If we were to move forward as a board, do we need to amend the original agreement, or what does that motion look like?
So, Mr. Mayor, as I understand it, this is a request for additional funds. I mean, if the board wants to approve this expense for some funding, we can do a separate agreement with them. We could handle that. So if the board directs any funding, we can just do a separate agreement if the board approves any funding for this expense.
And what does that look like? Do we need to make a motion to bring it back, I'm assuming, for formal approval, or just make the motion because this is part of the original project that came before us?
So, Mr. Mayor, this would be within the board's discretion. There's not an advertising or an advance notice. If you want it to come back, you can have it come back. If you want to take action today based on the information that's been presented to you and based on the director's comments or recommendation, that's within your discretion.
Okay. Madam Chair?
Did you have another comment?
Yeah, coming back.
Yeah.
So my position is I'm first of all, thank you for investing in downtown Tallahassee, and I think that we're all very excited to see you open. I am sorry that this happened, and that for whatever reason the city tapped many years ago, but it still showed up on your survey. I'm not in construction, so I don't know exactly how that happened. I am in a position to support the cost of this moving forward, and when you're ready, I will make that motion.
Board Member Porter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was ready to make a motion, so I agree wholeheartedly. I spoke to the team yesterday and had the same questions some of us have asked. You know, sometimes people do make mistakes, and it's not usually, well, I don't think it should be, you know, the taxpayer's job to bail them out. But in this case, it doesn't seem like there's anything that you did wrong, or this is just kind of a really freaky accident, you know, that it wasn't even identified with the previous owner. So this just couldn't have been foreseen. And I'm really excited to hear that the plan is to open this summer. And your comments too, that you can't really do anything at this point until this is resolved, makes me feel comfortable moving forward today and not delaying this any longer, especially since our next meeting isn't, you know, for 2 months, I think. So whenever that motion is made, I'll be happy to support it.
Any other comments?
I just want to point out the irony of the old waterworks building not having access to water.
No water. No water.
It's not lost on us.
The question that I have is, you're asking for is it a loan or is it you?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm asking the applicant.
Right. No, this is to fund that specific piece of work.
Okay. And let me just say this. I can support it, but what I have to also think about is others who come before us with projects who find themselves in similar situations and will maybe need additional funding. I want to make sure that we're on equal ground no matter who comes. And when something freaky like this happens, that they're going to be held harmless as well if they need additional funding to keep their project going. That's my only thing, and I don't apologize for this, but I'm somebody's mama, and I have to always make sure that I'm treating those children equal because they're watching, and somebody's going to point out, well, you did it for this one, but you didn't do it for this one. So I just want to put it out there that if we're going to move forward, and I don't have a problem with it. I just want to make sure that when others come with similar issues, that we're going to look at it in the same light. So that's my position on it. So I will come to the mayor for a motion. It sounds like you have a second.
So I would like to make a motion, and Mr. Attorney, put this in the right posture for me. So in talking with Mr. Cox yesterday, the staff recommendation was to cover the cost of the installation of the water tap and the associated roadwork in accordance with the site plan. So do we need to make the specific dollar amount as provided to us by the proposed change order? Or what's the appropriate measure for this?
Not to exceed a certain amount.
Yes, so, Mr. Mayor, my understanding from the presentation is that the MECAS folks have a quote from a contractor for a specific amount. If I understand it, the recommendation is to do this in the form of a grant. We would do a grant agreement. So if the board wants to approve a grant and an amount not to exceed, and if I understood Ms. Denny, it's 64 and some additional monies, then that would certainly be appropriate if that's the will of the board.
Okay, that's the motion that I'll make.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second. But let me get some clarification, because for some reason I know that's a quote from a contractor, but I thought there were some other costs. Because why does the 75,000 number is in my head for whatever reason?
We have actually received multiple quotes, so we were in the process of receiving quotes, and we have chosen the lowest bid.
Okay.
So that's where we come up.
Okay, all right, because I thought I'd hered something. Yeah. I want to make sure you don't have to come back to the well again.
No, we're not coming back.
Pardon the pun. I'm sorry. These water jokes are just water falling. I'm sorry.
They're just cascading.
They're just cascading, I know. Okay,
all right. Let's end this meeting.
Yeah, I know it. This one gets worse. Okay, all in favor of the motion that's on the table, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much. Go forth and do well.
Thank you.
You have two additional speakers. Ms. Elizabeth Emanuel, followed behind Mr. Stanley Sims.
All right.
Elizabeth.
Good morning.
Good
morning. Elizabeth Emanuel, 300 West Pensacola. I recognize you all just moved forward with this, but I took the time to prepare nice things to say, so I figured I would just say them anyways.
Please, put it in the record.
Right. So I just wanted to speak on behalf of Amicus because I did have the opportunity to take a tour of their building the other day, and it is really impressive what they've got going on. They've met their MWSBE quota. They were able to reuse wood salvaged from the trusses that they'll be making into tables for their brew room, and it's really showcasing the building's history. They've been really active in our community, participating in events already before their brewery has even opened up. They were most recently at a bartender's bash, which raised money for the Big Bend Homeless Coalition. And it turns out their beer is really, really good. It was apparently the hit of the event. Folks were raving about their strawberry basil beer and their signature Pastor's Pale Ale. So I think it's really good to recognize that that water is going to be put to an incredible use for our community. It will be turned into very good beer. They are already an important part of our downtown fabric based on their inclusion in community events, and we know that they will continue to be. Amicus Brewing is addressing blight with a great adaptive reuse project that will bring foot traffic into our area, increasing the offerings for everyone in downtown. It is incredible that we are seeing local families in our community put this level of time and effort and energy, their own funding into making something great for our community. And I'm really glad that you all took the time and the opportunity to help them with this project so that they can be a great example for more folks in our community that may want to come into these areas that have sat underutilized for so long and turn it into something that our entire community can enjoy. So thank you for your support of them today, and I look forward to having a beer with them this summer.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Elizabeth.
Last and final speaker, Mr. Sims.
Mr. Sims.
Hello again, still at 1320. That was a nice spiel. And Madam Chairman, I'm very pleased with the decorum of this meeting today, but I have to say, wouldn't it have been nice if Joel would have got a nice little plug like that? When we talk about equity,
Who is Joel?
the restaurant downtown,
That's not the name of it. It's Joellen's.
Joellen's, I apologize. But now you get my point. And that's what, when you say about your children, equal access to all of your children. I'm one of those kids that don't have that equal access. I have to knock very hard at the door. And these are the things, and Commissioner Richardson, I want to thank you for clarifying me because my remarks earlier was off point. I thought this was the incubator kitchen center that we were terminating the lease on. So that I apologize for my things area. But Madam Chair, my comments today to you is, I think that we could step up in a more aggressive way to preserve our heritage, especially those areas in the CRA. Let's use the CAT as a think center when we have property that we want to put up and not come to them with a prescription, but a prescription that will preserve the preservation of that land by local people. When we have, there's another issue. I've did some studies of other CRAs, ma'am, where they have literally ran out those buy here, pay here places that set up in our low-income areas and exploit people with mental illness and addictions with quick jobs. The CRA developed a job center, and they clean them in their own areas, and they report it based on the flexibility of their mental abilities. These are the encouraging more that I know we are capable of. I saw it happen today. And so I'm optimistic. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I already see some changes. Some of the staff members have reached out to me. I've got an email from Ms. Elizabeth for a meeting. I met with Mr. Byers. I met with Dr. Kim Moore, and I got an email from Amber from UPS. And we're trying to come together so we can put a cohesive network together that address the least of these, that puts them in an opportunity to be self-sustained. And so thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers?
No other speakers.
Hearing no other speakers, this meeting is adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. Sharing of ideas. I'm doing that. I'm trying to move the meeting because I have plenty of thoughts, but I'm not ready to share them. So, Board Member Porter, we'll start with you.
I don't really have much. Could we get just an email of, when we were speaking earlier about the programmatic aspects, because I know there's some in the Neighborhood First, and, you know, the events, you can have events, but we don't give one organization 3 event grants a year. You know, you get one and that's it. So that doesn't totally cover it. It can, but the Neighborhood First, there are other avenues and other grants. So I would just love to see if we could, just an email maybe outlining where there might be opportunities for funding that already exist, you know, as part of the plans, to see, just so for my knowledge, and so that we can see how we might be able to be more intentional in those, where those opportunities are. That's it for me. Thank you.
And on that note, thank you for saying that. I know that in the past, y'all have actually gone to the street and tried to find people to apply for grants. You've done a lot of things to try to make that happen. So I'm encouraging those of us who are watching and listening that if you need something, as I said earlier, shut mouths don't get fed. You need something, reach out to them, because I know that they've been out on the street knocking on doors, trying to get people to apply, and it's not always happening. And so if there's another way that we can get the word out that here's an opportunity, then please let us know what that is. But I like the suggestion from our Board Member Porter let us know, because then we can help too. We can reach out and tell folks, you know, what is available. And I'm looking in the audience and I see longtime CAC member from Greater Frenchtown Southside, Mr. J. Morrell, who I've been to meetings where he's saying to folks, you know, we're sitting here talking, we need to get busy doing something, you know, stop talking and let's get to walking. And so thank you for your service, Mr. Morrell, for trying to keep us moving in our community, especially in our CRA district. So thank you, Board Member Porter. Board Member Matlow?
Nothing for me.
Board Member Richardson? Here?
One quick thing. Lou, if you wouldn't mind, you're kind of the linchpin in the city attorney, but also the attorney for CRA.
Linchpin?
Would love to have just an informal update. Meisberg Amphitheater. It's always been my understanding that the reason why we don't have programming is that it's not ADA compliant. So I would love to see what do we need to do to bring it up to ADA compliance so that it can be used for public use. It just sitting there empty does nothing for this community. It honors Commissioner Meisberg and his legacy. So if you wouldn't mind at some point working with city staff, CRA, kind of figure out what's going on at Meisberg and what do we need to do to bring it up to compliance to be able to move forward.
We will do that, Mr. Mayor. I think Elizabeth with DIA is also taking a look at potential programming there, but we will coordinate it.
Excellent. That's all I have.
Okay, let me say this in closing. We do have Neighborhood First Plan, and each one has a community action team, right? And that community action team, part of their responsibility is to work with many moving parts in that neighborhood, in that community, including grants for events, activities, community improvement. The way it's designed is CRA is the funding vehicle. Okay, but the plan was put together by the neighborhood with the assistance of city management. I just encourage us to hit the gas. And when I say us, the neighborhood, hit the gas, use the Neighborhood First Plan, bring the improvements needed in the community. I was at a meeting last month, I think, or earlier this month, and there's still discussion about how to spend, you know, money when you have a plan. And we know that what has been allocated won't fix every issue and every problem, but it will fix some. Let's move forward fixing what we can fix, and then looking at, in the future, if there is additional need, looking at doing what one neighborhood is doing, is looking at a refresh. But if you don't spend what you have, you won't be able to get any more, because you know how government works. If you don't use what you have, then you don't need it. You must not need it. So let me just encourage folks, use what has been allocated. You got more money available out there than ever before. Let's use it, and let's keep moving our community forward. And with that, I think it's time to adjourn.
Great meeting.
Thank you all.